Good evening. I'm Stuart Watchman, ZL2TW from Blenheim.
And I'm Debbie Morgan, ZL2DL in Upper Hutt.
I'm Rosemary Bosher, ZL1RO in Auckland.
And I'm Stephen McNeil, ZL4HG from Christchurch.
And I'm Jim Meechan, ZL2BHF in Nelson. And together we bring you the NZART official broadcast for August 2016. Good evening everyone and welcome to NZART's August official broadcast. Now tonight's official broadcast marks the 90th anniversary of NZART official broadcasts. NZART was formed in Auckland on the 16th of August in 1926. At that meeting, Gordon Smithson, 1AF, agreed to conduct official broadcasts. It is believed that only 2 days later, on the 18th of August 1926, he conducted the first broadcast of official reports on 88 metres, 3.4 megahertz, and then weekly each Wednesday at 6:45 p.m. And that information supplied by Craig Crawford, ZL3TLB, our NZART historian. So here we are, 90 years later. First up on tonight's broadcast, presidential comment. Here's our NZART President, Stuart Watchman, ZL2TW. Stuart?
Good evening, everyone. In late July, the independent hearing panel that had been considering submissions to the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan released its recommendations. The initial draft plan and then the subsequent proposed plan were extremely restrictive for amateur activities. The good news is that the hearing panel has made a recommendation that is much more favourable, and there will be full details on this from Douglas, ZL1BFS, our local body liaison officer in the next edition of Break-In. This result has been achieved through much hard work by Douglas and his team, along with professional legal assistance by lawyer Julie Goodyear at a very reasonable rate. The cost of the legal representation has been fully met by all the branches in the Auckland area, and they are to be commended for this. I've had the pleasure of being invited to meet with 3 NZART branches in the last month. The first was to the nearby Nelson branch, where I was welcomed by President Andrews at L2HZ. And on the 6th of August, I was a guest of the newly out of recess South Wairarapa Branch 82. President Elaine, ZL2ELA, and her fellow branch members gave myself and Councillor Malcolm, ZL2UDF, and Break-In Editor Mark, ZL2UFI, a particularly warm welcome on what was a pretty cold grey day over much of the country. The evening before, I had been a guest of President Mike Cox at L2NSA when I attended the Upper Hutt branch meeting. I find it very useful and enjoyable to meet with NZART members at branch meetings and answer the questions of members and give an update of NZART matters. Unfortunately, one drawback of living in marvellous sunny Marlborough is that I am pretty geographically isolated. The nearest branch apart from my local one is an hour and a half away, but I will try and get to branch meetings around the country when I can. In the last info line, the details of NZART's public liability insurance was raised. NZART carries $5 million of public liability insurance and $2 million of firefighting insurance. This covers NZART members going about branch activities, the best example being repeater maintenance. There will be more on this in my column in the next edition of Break-In, as it is not possible on an official broadcast to cover the details necessary. But I do urge members of branch executives to read my column and let Council know just what their obligations are as far as the cover they require. It is possible that the $2 million forest fire cover is excessive and we can reduce this to make a saving on the premium. Note that damages, such as a loss of trees in an exotic forest plantation, is covered by the public liability policy, not the firefighting policy, which is solely for the cost of putting the fire out. Being excessively insured is a very good way to lose money year after year in premiums. Similarly, your branch will be losing money if it carries similar cover, as NZART members within your branch have protection from this one national policy. I know of at least 2 branches that have recently made changes to their insurance arrangements to make worthwhile savings. That's all from me this month, Jim, and as I say goodnight, I ask you all to make the most use you can of our access to the radio spectrum.
Thank you, Stuart. The President of NZART, Stuart Watchman, ZL2TW. Details now of the Manawatu Amateur Radio Society's annual table sale, to be held on Saturday, the 8th of October. The venue, the Longburn Hall, State Highway 56 in Longburn. Doors open for exhibitors at 8 a.m, for the general public and buyers at 10 a.m. Table pricing, full tables $25 until the 1st of October, $30 after that date. A half table, $15 until the 1st of October and $20 after that date. Now to book a table, contact treasure@zl2ko.org.nz. Email treasure@zl2ko.org.nz. You can check out www.zl2ko.org.nz for more details. So that's the Manawatu Amateur Radio Society's annual table sale on Saturday the 8th of October at Longburn. To Upper Hutt now and our monthly broadcast report from our NZART business manager. Here's Debbie Morgan, ZL2DL.
Good evening, Jim, and good evening, everyone. As we are fast approaching the end of the year, it's time to start thinking about a number of amateur radio must-dos. First of all, you will now be in receipt of your annual subscription invoice for 2017, included with your August break-in. Payment must be received at HQ by the 30th of November to take advantage of the $10 rebate. For those of you who send me your credit card details on the remittance slip, if you are wanting the rebate to be deducted, please amend the payment due to $89 on the slip. Otherwise, I will assume you wish to donate the rebate to NZART. If paying directly to our bank account, remember to put your reference details so that I can identify your deposit. Nominations for council and president must be received at headquarters by the 31st of December. If you or someone in your branch would like to nominate a person who you feel will best represent your area and the future of amateur radio, it's time to be considering this important role. Remits for next year's conference, to be held in Rotorua, are also due at headquarters by the end of the year. Is there something you feel needs to be considered by council? Then this is your opportunity to raise your voice. Ham-cram weekends appear to really be taking off, with a number of branches holding weekend amateur radio courses to introduce newcomers to the hobby. In order to make sure these successful candidates receive their call signs, it's important that the supervisors in attendance during the exam ensure the following. A. Collect the required course and call sign application fee. B. Determine if the eligibility of the candidate, that is, a New Zealand citizen, if born outside of the country, then applications must be accompanied by a copy of their residency status from their passports. C. All paperwork is forwarded to headquarters by the supervisor so that we can make sure these new amateurs can receive their call signs and certificates and start on the journey of amateur radio. I have received a number of exam results and the blue ERN forms, only to find that the candidate has never applied for their call sign. To me, it seems a bit of a waste for them if they do not get underway quickly after passing their exam. Finally, a CD-ROM callbook will be introduced in your December break-in. Considerable effort has been made by the callbook compiler and myself to ensure the information is as accurate as possible. It was highlighted during our May membership promotion. A number of call sign holders in the RSM database had not updated their details. Where this has occurred, they will appear in the call book with address unknown beside their call sign. Hopefully, some of you will know their whereabouts and advise me accordingly. It is a requirement to let RSM know of a change of address within 30 days from the date of moving. Well, that's all from me, Jim. Back to you.
Thank you, Debbie. Debbie Morgan, ZL2DL, the NZART Business Manager. Westfest 2016. This is the opportunity to show and share your ham radio activities with other hams. Westfest this year is being held on Saturday the 10th of September from 10:30 to 17:30 and Sunday 11th of September 900 to 12:30 at the Murchison Bowling Club, Wallace Street in Murchison. The dates again, Saturday the 10th September, Sunday the 11th. Now, no registration is required. For information, contact Bob Macquarie, ZL3TY. You can email Bob, ZL3TY, at nzart.org.nz. zl3ty@nzart.org.nz. Or you can telephone him 03 768 7388, 03 768 7388, or 027 420 8043, 027 420 8043. That's Westfest 2016 in Murchison on Saturday the 10th and Sunday the 11th of September. Now to catch up on international amateur radio news, we join the team at the Amateur Radio Newsline.
This week's newscast begins with breaking news. Here's Amateur Radio Newsline's Don Wilbanks, AE5DW.
As Amateur Radio Newsline went to production, an earthquake of 6.2 magnitude struck central Italy early Wednesday, August 24th. Initial reports indicate there were more than 120 fatalities. As emergency personnel continued to search for survivors, Italian amateurs began conducting emergency operations on the bands. Hams throughout the region were instructed to keep 7060 kilohertz, plus or minus 10 kilohertz, and 3643.5 kilohertz clear. Offers of assistance have arrived from France, Israel, Germany, and other nations. Details were still developing, and Amateur Radio Newsline will continue to follow this story. For Amateur Radio Newsline, Don Wilbanks, AE5DW.
Why does the ionosphere behave as it does? At a newly reopened research facility once owned by the U.S. military, university researchers are about to ask that same question. Here's more from Amateur Radio Newsline's Jim Dameron, N8TMW.
High-frequency radio researchers in Alaska are about to embark on a behavioral study of the most powerful kind. But their work has nothing to do with the habits or psychology of amateur radio operators. The scientists will be looking at the properties and behavior of the ionosphere, utilizing what is believed to be the world's most capable high-power HF transmitter. All this work is to be done at the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, or HARP facility, when it reopens in 2017. The FCC has granted HARP a pair of experimental service licenses to conduct the research at the facility, which is now owned by the University of Alaska at Fairbanks, which acquired it from the U.S. Air Force. HARP's research involves beaming radio waves straight up for hundreds of miles, sometimes with such power that the effects create an artificial aurora. Much of the research has applications in satellite communications and navigation. UAF researcher Chris Fallon, KL3WX, told the ARRL that early next week the research will begin. License WI2XFX will cover testing between 2.62 MHz and 8.1 MHz. And license WI2XDV will cover the part of the spectrum between 1 and 40 MHz. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jim Dameron, N8TMW.
If you're a leading manufacturer of amateur radio equipment, there's no better place to release the news of long-awaited new products than at the Tokyo Ham Fair, which recently concluded. Amateur Radio Newsline's Mike Askins, KE5CXP, tells us what radio giant ICOM had in store for them.
Attendees at the Japan Amateur Radio League's Tokyo Ham Fair on August 20th and 21st got quite an eyeful from ICOM Incorporated. The manufacturer at long last trotted out the very samples it had been hinting at for the past few weeks in its online campaign. Visitors got their first glimpses of a few new products. ICOM's IC7610 will replace the IC7600 as a 100-watt base station with built-in antenna tuner and capability for HF and 50 megahertz. ICOM also rolled out the ICR8600 wideband receiver to replace its ICR8500. This receiver will operate in analog and digital modes and have a frequency range from 0.01 to 3,000 megahertz. Among handhelds, ICOM is introducing the ICR30, an analog and digital model which succeeds the ICR20 and can decode D-Star, P25, NXDN, and DPMR digital modes. A special edition handheld model was also introduced, the ID51 Plus 2, which permits D-Star calls through the internet, even in areas without access to D-Star repeaters. Though ICOM revealed the samples, the company did not unveil details on prices or the product's launch dates. With more than 36,000 participants at the Ham Fair, you can be sure there were a lot of eyes on ICOM this year. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Mike Askins, KE5CXP.
For now, with Karen Eve Murray, KD2 GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team worldwide, I'm Stephen Kinford, N8WB in Wadsworth, Ohio, saying 73. And as always, we thank you for listening. Amateur Radio Newsline is copyright 2016, all rights reserved.
And as always, we say thank you to Newsline for the use of their copyright material. Right now it's time for Waro News, and it's a very good evening to Rosemary, ZL1RO.
Thanks, Jim, and hello, everyone. From the Australian Ladies Amateur Radio Organisation comes the news that their next Alara meet will be held in Cairns, Queensland, probably about this time next year. A number of ZLYLs attend these meets, and I'll give you more information as it comes to hand. Written items and photos are desperately needed for the Waro Bulletin. Send them off to Topsy, ZL2LS, at her email address in the executive page of the Bulletin magazine. Topsy works very hard to give us an interesting magazine, but has no contributions so far for the next issue. Our break-in page compilers are also asking for items of interest for the Waro break-in page. Just a few lines and a photo of a branch activity you or your branch have been involved in would be very welcome. They can be sent to waro at nzart.org.nz. How long is it since you checked into the Waro Monday Night Net on 3695 MHz? It's not a long net and it's quite informal. Any licensed YL is welcome to check in, and she does not have to be a Waro member. Next Wednesday, the 31st of August, is the last day to get the discount for Waro subscriptions. Treasurer Heather, ZL2TYF, would be delighted to be deluged with mail from members in the next few days. That's all from Waro for this month, Jim. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Rosemary. Reporting for Waro, Rosemary Bosher, ZL1RO. And finally, in tonight's official broadcast lineup, it's Branch News. Here's Stephen McNeil, ZL4HG.
Thanks, Jim, and good evening, everyone. We start with the Western Suburbs Radio Club, Branch 03 NZART. The next meeting is on Saturday the 24th of September, starting 10 a.m. This is at the club rooms on 3000 Great North Road in New Lynn, and it will feature a radio-related video. Down to Hutt Valley Branch 18, where the next meeting is on Monday, September the 5th, where a feature of the evening is Test Gear, and this will be at the club rooms in the Philip Evans Reserve, which is in the service lane off Birch Street in Waterloo in Lower Hutt. Nelson Branch 26 NZART has a pre-loved equipment sale on Wednesday the 21st of September, starting 7:30 p.m. This will be held at the National Party Electorate Office meeting rooms, which is on the corners of Waimea and Quarantine Roads. And finally to Otago Branch 30 NZART in Dunedin. On Wednesday, September the 7th, Terry ZL4TAE talks about modulation, with all the usual suspects including CW, AM, FM, PM, and a close encounter with the digital realm. And on September the 21st, Ian Scott, ZL4NJ, will give a presentation covering the evolution of the bipolar transistor. And finally, on September the 28th, AREC section leader Lindsay Ross, ZL4KS, will talk about AREC and current developments and involvement with SAR, civil defence, and the state of the DMR network. Well, that's all from me, Jim. Back to you.
Thank you, Stephen. Stephen McNeil, ZL4HG, reporting from Christchurch. The next issue of NZART Headquarters Info Line, that's edition number 343, will be emailed on Friday the 2nd of September. The next NZART official broadcast will be made by ZL6A at 8 p.m. on Sunday the 25th of September. This is ZL6A, headquarters station of the New Zealand Association of Radio Transmitters, concluding the NZART official broadcast for August 2016. Good night, everyone. Good night now.